I just love this show. It's so insanely difficult to 100% figure out, and that makes me incredibly happy. So just like the other episodes this season, we start with that flash forward again at the mansion belonging to the siblings and the dead parents, and we have Annalise on the ground dying, or on the floor of the mansion. Then we have the prosecutor dead outside. Anyway, each episode we get a little bit more information. In this episode, we got, I feel like, kind of a lot of information about that whole scenario. So it makes the Keating, I guess, 4 here, because we don't see Asher, look really, really guilty, because they're basically leaving her to die. So she's getting a phone call, and that person calling is Nate, and he seems really interested in trying to get her to answer the phone, like he's really concerned about her. But the entire time that he was driving and calling her and hoping that she would pick up and hoping that she was okay, I was thinking, now this would be just a perfect alibi for him, so he could be like, you know, I was calling her, I was checking on her, so I wasn't involved. So later on in the episode, we're going to find out some not so nice stuff about him. But what I want to say here is that it looks like the students are very, very guilty, and I feel like that might be just way too easy, and I really don't think that they were trying to kill her. I could be wrong, but I think that they want you to believe that they're incredibly guilty in this whole scene, and I think there's much, much more to the story, so we will just have to see how that plays out. So let's go back to present day, or at least where we are normally at in this show. Annalise is talking into her voice recorder, and she's trying to figure out what the motive would be for the siblings to torture and kill their parents. Maybe it's because they felt unloved. Maybe they didn't really feel like they were part of this family since they were adopted into the family. She can't really figure out a good motive at this part, but she's kind of going over ideas that could possibly be what happened on her voice recorder. But she hears something in her home, and she feels like someone is trying to break in, so she kind of freaks out. She goes down into the basement, and she thinks that it was just like a mouse or a rat making noise that got caught in a trap. So she calls Wes, and Wes comes over to take care of that situation, and she feels a lot better. But was it really that mouse that was making all that noise? We will find out. So we actually return to another side story in this episode, which I actually kind of like and miss those side stories. And I was surprised to see it happen, because it seemed like the first side story we were given was kind of had taken over and was going to be part of the entire season. But this side story deals with a woman named Tanya who works in the sex industry, and she is accused of doing something to contribute to the death of a man that she was having sex with, basically. And Annalise is trying to prove her innocence. So Asher is being hardcore blackmailed by this prosecuting attorney, and he's at a point where he doesn't really know what to do and doesn't really want to be involved, and it really just gets worse from here. So in order to win this case with Tanya, the sex worker, they're going to have to find someone from the sex club to testify that Tanya is not a killer, and that she cared for this guy, and that she couldn't have been the person who contributed to his death. But as the Keating 5 go out and try to convince members of this sex club to testify, everyone is just far too embarrassed to take the stand. So there is an absolute bombshell in the sibling versus their parents case, or killing their parents case. And I just want to give a huge shout out to a couple of you, because you totally called it in the comments of my last videos. You thought that perhaps, or some of you thought that perhaps the siblings were involved romantically. It turns out that's absolutely what is going on, because a picture has leaked to the press of them pretty much kissing. That is creepy. I mean, yes, I know that they are not blood related, but come on, that's making them look even more guilty. To be completely honest here, I'm starting to wonder if they really are guilty, because so much stuff makes them look guilty that it feels like they just can't be guilty. I don't know. I've gone back and forth about what I think about it. Sometimes I think that the sister, the daughter here, is the one who did everything, and the brother is just trying to protect her because she seems the least likely. And then other times I'm like, I don't know if they're involved at all, because they look so incredibly guilty. So what do you think? Just put your comments down below, and thumbs up if you think that they're definitely involved somehow. Alright, so Connor and Michaela end up going to one of these sex parties just because they want to find someone to testify, but that doesn't happen. Instead, they find out some very interesting information for this case. One of the women tells them that Tanya wanted to trade cards with her, and by that it means like who you're going to have sex with, basically. And so she traded cards so that she could have sex with this one guy named Dominic, who's the one who ended up dying because, well, she was kind of like obsessed with him. We'll get into that a little bit later. So somehow Annalise's voice recorder that we see her talking into at the beginning of the episode has gone missing. Yeah, that is not good. But Annalise in this episode is really concerned about making things right with Nate because she still has feelings for him, to be honest, and let's be real here, she totally screwed him over in all of this. So what she does is something super shady and something totally Annalise-like. She gets this ledger that everyone who goes to like these sex parties, they sign their name. And she actually adds a guy from the police department, a sergeant. She adds his daughter's name to the list. She takes it to him so that she can blackmail him. She's like, oh my gosh, your daughter is part of this sex club party ring, and you know I'm going to expose her if you don't give Nate a job, basically. So what I think we're going to see happen in this season is all the stuff that Annalise does, the bad stuff that she does to people, is kind of going to come back on her. Yes, karma, absolutely. So I think she can only, you know, screw people over for so long until it starts coming back on her and leaves her in the floor dying, basically. So Annalise realizes that Tanya is totally lying and she's definitely involved in the murder of this Dominic guy. So Tanya pretty much confesses and she's like, you know, I love this guy. I didn't want to kill him. I just wanted to cause problems between him and his wife so his wife would leave him. So the guy was already taking Viagra, so she made him take a nitroglycerin pill without him knowing what it was. She knew that that could cause some medical issues. I don't know how she didn't know that that wouldn't kill him because that combination is like lethal. I don't know why she was saying she didn't want to kill him. I don't know. I mean, I guess she didn't, but that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But when she gave him that pill, he had a heart attack and died. So yeah, that was a big problem. So what is she going to do now to win this case? I'm thinking like there's no way. But of course, there's always a way with Annalise. So Laurel has a very interesting conversation with Frank because she's starting to really have feelings for him. And she is trying to like learn more about his life and his backstory. And he doesn't really want to divulge that much to her. But he starts telling her that most of the stuff about him is bad, which I 100% believe. So what I want to know is what is going on? What is the bad stuff? We already know he's a murderer. He's probably killed more than one person. We know he killed Lila. I'm sure he's done it before because that seemed so easy for him. He's probably done a lot of bad stuff. And I think a lot of the people that Annalise associates with are actually hardcore criminals, like Bonnie. So what do you think? What are your ideas about what Frank might have done? And it seems like Laurel's a pretty nice girl, and I wish she would just kind of get away from him. So it turns out that Asher was actually the one who broke into Annalise's house at the beginning of this episode, and it wasn't really the mouse that she heard. He stole the voice recorder because the prosecuting attorney asked him to do it, and the prosecuting attorney leaked the creepy incest pic of the siblings to the press. At this point, Asher was like, I don't want to be your mole anymore. Like, I'm done with this. I can't deal with this anymore. If you really want to make this threat real, you do it, but I'm not going to do this anymore. Yeah, well, he probably shouldn't have said that because this woman is serious. So Annalise just stoops to a new low, and that says a lot for her, but she ends up blaming the death of Dominic, you know, the guy at the sex party, on his wife because his wife was jealous because she knew he was having affairs, and she totally gets Tanya to be set free, which is insane. Now, they're not going to press charges against Dominic's wife, but it was just really humiliating and awful, and even Tanya felt bad about it. And we're just kind of seeing this season, as if we didn't already know, just how low Annalise will go to get her way and just how really, honestly, not good of a person she is. So the prosecuting attorney texts a pic of a girl to Asher, and we're not really sure at this point who this is, but Bonnie actually sees the text and she immediately thinks he's cheating on her, and he's like, yeah, actually I'm seeing someone I met at the library. The only reason he does this is because he doesn't want her to find out that he's being blackmailed and doing all this terrible stuff against Annalise. So later it seems that this may be a relative of Asher's, perhaps like his sister or something, and maybe something bad's gonna happen with her. I don't know, but it's not good. So we have Michaela's new man, who we all thought was Eggs 911. Well, he's the person who has been texting, but he's not actually Eggs. He says that Eggs is Rebecca's nickname, and he's her foster brother. So Wes like confronts him and he's like, I know who you are, leave Michaela alone. And they kind of agree to work together because they both don't believe that everything's okay with Rebecca. They kind of think Annalise is involved. So maybe that will factor into why she's laid on the floor covered in blood. What do you think? Please leave your comments down below and thumbs up if you think that's going to have a factor in it. But he kind of promises he's going to leave Michaela alone, but then he's at like her house later, so I'm not sure about that. We find out an employee of the rich people in the mansion is the one who took that weird incest pic of the siblings. I don't know if she's like a maid or what she is, but she's kind of the one that exposed all of this, and she tells Annalise that they're 100% guilty. So, I don't know. Like I said, it seems too easy because everyone says they're guilty. So, even Annalise thinks they're guilty, obviously. So, like I was saying earlier in this video, Annalise has feelings for Nate. She actually wants to get back together with him. So, she goes to his apartment and she's like, you know, hopefully we can get past this one day. And he's like, not now, but give me some time, which sounded promising, except when he closes the door, we see that Wes is also in his apartment, and they've worked out some kind of deal against Annalise. So this should all be very interesting to see how this plays out. And I just love how many twists and turns there are because you really never know, like, what's going to happen. And that's why this show is just so phenomenal. So our last shocking moment, as we always get a huge shocker at the end of these episodes, is that we see the kids running away from the scene. We're back to that flash forward again of the mansion and Annalise being on the ground covered in blood. We see them running away from the scene and they're trying to hide, and like a truck pulls up and it's Nate, and Nate wants them to get in. So we know that he's involved in whatever is going on, and he's probably not really that concerned about Annalise and hoping that she lives. So I want to know what your theories are about all of this. I definitely think, I don't know, I think it's too easy to say that Nate and all those, the Keating Four, were the ones who are trying to kill Annalise, but it definitely seems like they're involved. There has to be way more to the story. Who do you think is the person who stabbed or shot Annalise? I want to know down below. And if you're loving this season, thumbs up this video because just like last season, I think this season is amazing. So thank you so much for watching this episode of Kellie TV. I'll see you next time.
Yeah, yo. All I know is yeah, yo. Every time she hit the block, that hoe, she be on go mode.